Welcome, students of the Force, back to our archives. We've been expecting you. With the grandiose powers of the dark side, the Sith want for nothing, all of them, especially Darth Sidious. Darth Sidious firmly believes that the powers of the Sith were so much more superior to the Jedi that there was just no contest between the two Force-based organizations. For the longest time, the Sith saw the light side as inferior and practically obsolete when compared to the powers that are granted to them when they devote themselves to the pursuit of passion and fury. Their dedication grants them near instantaneous power that allows them to become some of the most devastating destroyers of life that the galaxy has ever seen. While these powers are larger than life, they do often miss out on some of the more subtle benefits that are granted by the light side Force wielders, and the light side of the Force itself in its bringing of life. Though the Sith don't seem to mind all too much, until it comes to one fact. The dark side erodes life within its wielders, just as efficiently as it does within its targets. While the Sith may find the lesser powers of the light side to be worthy of ridicule, there is one singular light side ability that the Sith absolutely crave. This ability is Force healing, a power that is reserved exclusively for those that have the utmost dedication to the light. So, sit with us today, my friends, as we delve into why the Sith would care so much about this singular ability. Force healing is a Jedi power that relies on one's full control of their passion. It is highly advanced and oftentimes is quite taxing on the users. Many Jedi in the Order aren't able to touch this ability on the physical level due to its very specific requirements. Compassion, love, mercy, and genuine care was required in order for one to use this ability to the fullest extent of its powers. Many Jedi mystics and healers had the job of using the Force to heal others. Among mystics is where the ability was most potent. Using it to heal oneself was almost even more demanding, as it wasn't as if you could draw from the compassion you felt for another being. You just had to be in tune with the very general compassion of the light side itself. Obviously, for this reason, Sith were incapable of using Force healing. For a group of people that found themselves on the business end of a lightsaber more and more than any other being in the galaxy, clearly this lack of any kind of support ability posed a major problem to the Sith, who was once betrayed by his lover who poisoned him with a deadly toxin. He didn't sense it within his body fast enough for him to flush the effects, and it was very quickly killing him. While he was dragging himself to a known healer on the planet, he was grumbling about this very issue, speaking of Force healing as a Jedi ability, and not one that the dark side was ever privy to. Bane admitted in this moment of weakness that this was one of the only gnarling pitfalls of the dark side itself. The dark side is that it didn't offer much in the way of any sort of healing whatsoever, as it was all take and very little give. This is an exceptionally rare moment for a Sith Lord of Darth Bane's caliber to be brutally honest with himself and his philosophy, and is a crucial moment in the Darth Bane trilogy. However, much like other abilities, the Sith did find a few ways of circumventing this issue, though finding ways of healing through the dark side came usually with a terrible cost. What many Sith Masters did was use the pain they felt to invigorate themselves and call upon the dark side as a sort of adrenaline shot. This would keep them going until they got proper medical care. Just look to the likes of Darth Maul. If the pain was too much to draw upon, like with Bane, then they'd be able to stave off the pain for a little while. Another instance of this happening was when Darth Vader managed to temporarily heal his lungs and injuries using the Force. He was able to do this while floating in his bacta tank. Vader concentrated all of his rage, suffering, and the injustice done to him by Obi-Wan, and soon the very tissue began to repair, and for a moment he could breathe again, all on his own. His anger, though, soon turned to joy and elation for the briefest of moments, but that was all it took, and the dark side left him, returning him to the damaged state that he was in. The joy he had felt poisoned the dark side itself that was channeling within him, and he lost all progress. In both of these examples, healing and tissue repair was possible only so long as a Sith constantly focused on the dark side within themselves. This technique was directly limited by the individual's capacity to actively maintain their anger long enough to continue on. And while you may guess that this should be just a simple matter of math for the Sith, it required focus like one would need to focus on telekinesis, and wasn't something that could just be constantly running on in the background like other Force abilities. Many Force users, even Sith, have a limit of stamina when it comes to drawing upon the Force, and it isn't like they could keep focusing on it while they were sleeping. To say that this method of Sith healing was just as viable as Jedi healing would be like taking pain pills and treating them like antibiotics. It's just not the same thing, and will hurt you in the long run. Darth Sion learned this lesson the hard way, as he managed to use his pain to almost instantly heal his injuries whenever they accumulated. Because of this great power, he grew exceedingly arrogant, and just kept doing this. However, eventually, all of these injuries would pile up, and soon, once he was convinced to let go, his body basically tore itself apart entirely, as all of his severe injuries came flooding back in all at once. There have been a few unique cases of Sith managing to use Sith sorcery to heal themselves, as Exar Kun once successfully attempted to do so using this method after his trial by Freed and Nat. But of course, there are many penalties to using Sith sorcery in on oneself. Despite all of this though, there has really only been one fully successful use of Sith healing in the entire Order's history that did not have any obvious repercussions. It was achieved by one Darth Plagueis, who after discovering the secret to manipulating the midichlorians, did so in himself in order to restore his years, and even made himself look far younger. And yet, interestingly enough, not even Plagueis could fully utilize it enough to repair his damaged respiratory system, and was required to continue to wear his respirator mask until his death. In most of all cases, Sith have attempted to create a dark side variant of Force healing, but have mostly, if not entirely, failed. Any successes that have happened often have pitfalls or fine print that come back around to affect the Sith much later on. Force healing is really one of the only things that the dark side has not been able to fully replicate, and the proof is clear that the Sith tried a great many times, rather desperately and dangerous attempts to use Force healing in a vain attempt to capture this power, whilst failing to grasp it in its truest essence. The tragic irony of the dark side is all of its immense power often comes at the neglect of more nuanced influence that the light side carries with it, in the fact that it cannot create anything new, only corrupt or destroy what has already been created. The corruption of life is exactly what fuels the darkness, so when the dark is forced to create something, it must still destroy. But this is why Force healing was the only power of the light that the Sith coveted so deeply. So my friends and students of the Force, what did you think of this? And in this series of analyzing Force abilities, which one would you like to see explored next? Let us know down below. And as always, my friends, go in peace, and may the Force be with you.